I greet you in Jesus' precious name. Today I want to speak to you about kindness. Kindness, of course, is, as you know, one of the fruits of the Spirit. If we look at the book of Galatians, chapter 5, and verse 22 and verse 23, you will see the Lord talks about the fruits of the Spirit. Now, Jesus was full of kindness and compassion. You know, we read in Mark chapter 8, verse 2, you can look it up. He saw the multitude, they hadn't eaten for 3 days, and he said to the disciples that they must feed them. That was thousands of people. And of course, you know the story with the fish and the bread. And they were all fed, and there was baskets of leftovers afterwards. And then we go to John chapter 21, verse 9. This is now after Jesus had been crucified, and on the third day he was resurrected. But by this time, remember, the disciples had gone back to Galilee because they came from Galilee. They were fishermen, and they'd gone out fishing, and they'd come back early in the morning. They'd fished all night, and they caught nothing. You know the story. And Jesus, what had he done? Did he stand on the shore side and rebuke them and say, "Why didn't you trust me? Why have you gone back fishing? I made you fishers of men." No, he didn't do any of that. You know what he did? Because he's a kind God. He had cooked fish over coals. He would have roasted that beautiful fish, and he had made bread, fresh bread, on the coals for the disciples. If we go to John chapter 21, verse 9, here it says, "And then as soon as they had come to land, they saw a fire of coals there, and fish laid on it, and bread." How's that for kindness? Folks, we've got to be kind to one another. We really have to. There's a shortage of kindness. Now, why am I telling you this story? Well, just the other night, I was watching the news, and it was the BBC News, the British Broadcasting Corporation, and they said the watchword for this year, 2025, amongst children is one word: kindness. That is the word that the children use. Why do you think they use that word? Unfortunately, I'd like to say because there is so little kindness in the world today. And a little child is the first one to feel the brunt of irritation, of impatience, of anger, of jealousy, of self-centeredness, a little child. But kindness is what the Lord is requiring of you and me today. That is the mark of a believer, kindness. Now, I want to finish up before I pray for you, and I want to tell you a little story. And this story is true. A young theological student studying in Edinburgh, Scotland, with his young South African wife, was walking down the high street on a freezing cold, windy day, and they saw this door open and a lovely little cottage, and they walked into the cottage, and there was a lovely bowl of flowers on the table, and an old Scottish lassie came out and said, "Can I help you?" And they said, "Yes, please, we'd like some tea and some scones." She said, "No problem, sit down." And off she went into the kitchen, and they could smell the fresh scones being cooked. They were a little bit irritated because the time was running out. But eventually they waited because they smelt that beautiful aroma. And out she came with a fresh plate of scones, hot tea, strawberry jam, and whipped up cream. Well, they got stuck in, and at the end they were so happy. They said, "Thank you so much for your kindness. How much do we owe you?" Thinking it was a B&B or something. And the lady looked surprised. She said, "No, you don't owe me on anything." She says, "This is a private home." Out of the kindness of her heart, that old lady helped them. Jesus bless you. And remember, be kind to one another.